Leaving the Netherlands for Paraguay. Today we're going to share some of the most burning reasons why foreigners leave the Netherlands for a more free country in the emerging world. I'm here with Nico, a Paraguayan who lived in the Netherlands, and he's now looking to come back to Paraguay for a number of reasons. We're going to be discussing some of the most burning issues that foreigners face when living in the Netherlands and why the Netherlands is everything but a heaven. So please talk to us about, first of all, why did you move to the Netherlands? You had certain expectations, right?
Absolutely.
If you can talk about that, maybe a few things that you thought would come to fruition, and maybe they came to fruition or not. And then at the end of the day, you learned more about the reality of living in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I moved to the Netherlands around 4 years ago. Initially, I went there because I wanted to do my bachelor's. So my university career. And the reason why I chose the Netherlands is I thought that, I've been in Germany before. And because of that, I knew that learning Dutch, it would be easier, which it was not true, by the way. I mean, it's slightly easier, but still pretty difficult. But I thought that the Netherlands, I don't know why, but I picture it as a really fun place, you know. I mean, the reputation of the Netherlands having the such freedom with for example, the drugs and that type of things. And I thought to myself, if a country is like that, then they must be really fun. Well, turns out after living there for after some months, I realized that it was not really the case. The situation in the Netherlands, it rains every day, every single day. Well, obviously it gets worse around winter time, this is my first con, sort of say. This is the first thing that is really making me come back to Paraguay as soon as possible, because in winter you can really spend up to a month and a half without seeing the sun once, which is really, I mean, before having such experience, I never had that. And being from Paraguay, where you see the sun almost every single day of the year, the impact of not seeing the sun was something that I was not ready for, and that struck me pretty hard. It was one of the first things that struck me. But moving on throughout the years, I came to realize that Dutch people, they are really nice. They are really direct people, and that's something that you need to get used to. Because it's not so easy when you try to make friends with Dutch people, for example. You have people that are really open, but you also have people that are not open. That's also something that I never faced in my life. Here in Paraguay, you can approach pretty much anyone and they will be nice. They will be welcoming. They will try to make you a part of the community. There it's a little bit different. There, for example, you have to speak Dutch in order to integrate fully. You will be able to make friends. I was able to make some friends. However, there's always that breach in between us. That relationship can never become like a true friendship or brotherhood. Here in Paraguay, I can say, for example, with my friends, I feel like I have many friends that are like brothers. But I cannot say the same there, and I don't think that regardless of how much time I spend there, I don't think I will ever achieve that level of relationship. That's my second biggest reason. Now I do want to talk about the nice things in the Netherlands, because I think that there are also good things. I'm not trying to say that the Netherlands is the worst place in Europe. Because I really don't think it is. And some of the really nice things is that they really have a really nice system of public transport. It's really expensive, but if with all of my experience that I had around Europe, it's the most reliable. I work now. I'm done with my bachelor's. I've been working there for the past 3 months, and I have to take the train every day. And in 3 months, I have not experience a delay in the trains, for example. That is something that I know many people that live in Germany, in Spain, Italy. That's not the case there in such places. Obviously the wages, the salaries in the Netherlands are quite nice. The country is very expensive. Taxes are extremely high, but you can have a good life with a base salary. That's also true. But yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I also appreciate a lot is education. Because my purpose of going there was to get high education, better than the one that you can find in Paraguay when we talk about university. And that's also something that I'm very pleased with. I was able to graduate and have beautiful experience in that regard.
What you have pointed out about the difficulty associated with making friends in the Netherlands, there's a term called You have to break the ice to get through. And I think it's very applicable to the Dutch society as a whole. And it's almost identical in Germany and Austria and Switzerland. Like, it's very hard to get accepted into society, especially as a foreigner, and not being European. It's hard. So I understand that part. Now, what would you say are some of the biggest concerns that you have spotted about wokeness? Because that's a big issue across the entire European continent, and even more so in Western Europe. Are there any specific points that you would like to add in terms of like wokeness?
Well, that's something, definitely one of the culture shocks that I experienced when I moved there. And here in Paraguay, the culture is very traditional. I'm sure you've experienced it by now. It's very traditional. We come from, well, if you look at it in a certain way, we're kind of behind in that, if you want to put it that way. But there, I had to adapt a lot. I have to be careful of what I say, be careful of how I feel, how I really feel, because if I screw up, then I really screw up, because in that what you were saying about the woke, they have a culture of public shaming things that to me was, so I was thinking, I mean, that's not so bad. For example, this is the real experience that we had in my course. There was another, not friend, this is someone that I knew. Well, he was also from a South American country, from Peru, and he made a comment. He laughed at a question. This was at the university. A girl asked a question, and it was related to feminism. And this guy, he just laughed. He didn't say that she was wrong for asking that question. He didn't say that he was not agreeing with what she said. He just laughed. Right after the class ended, the girl came up to him, and she confronted him. He said that it was no big deal, and then she posted everything to social media. There was this sort of like group of a bunch of people that were bullying this guy through social media again, and he had to leave the course. This was in the first week of university, so he was still at time to leave, and he left the university because of this, because it was really sort of like society was against him for laughing at something. And so it's really, I found myself having to be really careful about what I do, even if to me, what I was doing or thinking or saying was not even bad.
It is a very direct culture. Like, Europe is a very direct culture with most things, but when it comes to wokeness, it's not. It's like a prohibited area you don't go to. Mm-hmm. Whereas here, like, people would just tell you straight in the face, like Enzo, for instance, right? He is not a fan of wokeness either. Yeah. Whereas in Europe, it's like so socially accepted to accept all of this. And anyone who just says something that's slightly against the main narrative is considered someone who dislikes other groups just because you're speaking your opinion, right? Okay, now you have addressed some of the positives, because there are positives in the Netherlands. It's not just all bad stuff. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of good points, and it's the same here in Paraguay, right? There's good, there's bad, and at the end of the day, it comes down to, where do you want to self-emerge, right? Where do you see yourself living in? What truly is in alignment with your identity? Mm-hmm. And for you, it sounds like the Netherlands is not it, and you're now thinking about going back to Paraguay. Let's talk a little bit more about your time in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the Netherlands going in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you feel like this part of the world, we're talking about Western Europe, has a brighter future than Paraguay, or would you say it's a worse future? And if it is worse, if you can point out a thing or two, why the future of Paraguay is better than the future of the Netherlands?
Well, this is I'm pretty sure it's a very complicated topic, Nowadays, I definitely think right off the bat, I think Paraguay has a brighter future. That's to be clear. However, I'm not saying that the future of the Netherlands is good. I don't think it's going to be necessarily bad. It really depends on what are the people and the society what direction are they going to take. I think that right now they're at the sort of like a point where they can either start doing the things the right way and start getting back up, or they could really make some big mistakes. Now, with all the world-class crises that they are facing, with the wars that are surrounding the area, they are really facing some major issues. when we talk about immigration, because they're also, when we were also talking about wokeness within the Netherlands itself. There's quite a big of resistance against wokeness as well. You have the majority, if you on average, people are woke, even more the people that you find at the universities and at this sort of like these areas, in the corporate world and all of that. Wokeness is what prevails more, but you also have a big influence against that, right? But I think just that Paraguay, up to this point, it's less developed. The only thing that means is that there's so much potential to be developed, and now people are getting educated. We're having better politics. Well, it's still, we know that there's corruption. We know that but it's improving. You can see that with the numbers. Paraguay, I mean, if you check at the development rates of the region, the only country that's higher than us is Argentina in the recent years. And I think that for that main reason, Paraguay has a brighter future. There's so much to be done here, and obviously the country is putting a lot of effort in bringing foreign investment, foreign capital to the country, foreign entrepreneurs to the country to do their base here in Paraguay, and help to develop, bring money to the country. And I think that's going to show in the next year. And for that reason, I think Paraguay is definitely has a much better future ahead than a place like Europe, where there's already too much people. It's too condensed. One of the main issues, I think, is that the ideologies, the ideas in Europe, there's so many people with different ideas, and they're constantly fighting. And I wish they are able to overcome, this difference and somehow find a union against the things that really matter, against the real threats. But I don't think because of this woke attitude, I don't think they will be able to unite. I think that's
one of the things that you have pointed out, which is the key fact to be really considering, and that's that a society is either forward-looking or backward-looking. And European society reached a high a long time ago. Yeah. And the problem is that certain attitudes were passed on. Once you reach the top, you can kind of really compare this to the NBA league. It's very hard for the same team to win the next championship the following year. That's almost impossible for a number of reasons, right? So once you have reached ultimate peak performance at anything, and in Europe, that has probably been the best time was probably in the 90s, where the people were really enjoying the most, and there was still optimism too. But that is slowly fading away. When I grew up in Europe, which was in the 90s, there was still a lot more optimism. The median age was about 37 years, and now it's 44, 45 years. It's gone up like 20 to 30% in just 20 to 25 years. Whereas in Paraguay, for the median age to reach, say, 45 years, it would take decades to get there. But just to put this in perspective, because you were talking about how this country is developing and how Europe believes Europe has nothing left to be developed. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem. So Europeans look at emerging countries, or people from emerging countries, with the mentality that, hey, we're fully developed and Nico is not, for instance, or Enzo is not fully developed, right? So that's kind of like the lens Europeans are looking through. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's actually quite similar in Canada, in the US, in Australia. Emerging countries and its people are considered as emerging, whereas emerged, developed, is already completed. But you know what that is? Entitlement mindset. And that's the kiss of death. You can never have that. Now, you see this having lived in more parts of the world, right? In Europe and Latin America. So you have perspective. You can compare this. Whereas a lot of Europeans, native Europeans, they've never lived to Latin America. And so they're looking at this from a lens that, okay, for instance, it's very prominent in Mexico or Colombia, because the news that you hear out of these two countries, they are primarily negative. Paraguay doesn't get much publicity. It doesn't get much. It doesn't get good publicity, and it also doesn't get negative publicity. It gets nothing. So it's neutral, But that's interesting. Now talk to us about what accomplishments do you see yourself realizing in Paraguay, where you would say, hey, maybe this is going to be much more difficult to achieve in the Netherlands or any European country, and if you can outline why you think it is the case.
So what I studied in the Netherlands, I mean, the entire reason why I went to the Netherlands in the first place is because I wanted to learn there as much as I could and then bring all that knowledge back to Paraguay and help develop the country. My bachelor's is entrepreneurship and business innovation. So I think that's super aligned with what I wanted to do. So in the next 7 to 10 years, I really wish to be able, because when we talk about entrepreneurship, there's a lot of uncertainty. So it's hard to say for sure, but I wish to be able to create businesses that also have a lot of social impact. And the same thing in Europe. It will be really hard for many reasons. First, there's too much supply there, and there's too much supply of everything. So it's really hard to innovate. There's always the opportunity, but it's really hard in a such over competitive environment. It's really hard to come up with something that's gonna really provide value to people, because nowadays the companies are just things that we don't need, consumption. And that's something that I would need to, if I wanted to be a successful entrepreneur in the Netherlands, I will have to rely on that type of things. Social entrepreneurship is only possible in places like here, where there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of communities that are misrepresented. There's a lot of things, a lot to be done. So that is definitely one of the things. I've been facing this sort of like dilemma of what am I gonna do, because now I finished my bachelor's, I'm working, and I really everything I want to do is definitely do entrepreneurship, but I wanted to consider staying there a little bit more just for the personal growth and personal development, but because that's definitely something that you get living in Europe, being from here, because it's such a different experience that you really have to work a lot of yourself to overcome that. So in that sense, if I wanted to stay in Europe, I would have to work. I have to be an employee my entire life, because that is the system there. That's what everyone also encourages. Society also, it looks up to people that are part of just one of these huge corporations, and they are in the same job for 15, 20, 30 years. And I don't know, but that's not for me. And it's not easy to achieve the other side there in Europe. It's definitely not. And here in Paraguay, like I said, there are so many things to be done. It's even if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and if you have an idea, you just need to replicate something that it already exists in Europe that is not here, and you'll make money. And you have a business there. You have a business idea. You just copy the business model. You copy everything you see there, and you put it here, and you have it.
You articulated this very wonderfully, and I think that's key. Now, you gained a skill set in Europe that a lot of Paraguayans don't have. However, I like the lens you're looking through, because you're looking through a lens in the sense that what value can I get from outside that I can bring here and monetize? And that's what makes Paraguay great, because there's a lack of a lot of skills here. Like, we have a lot of clients that are coming here and they're like, this business doesn't exist here. We had another client like 2 weeks ago, and he said, hold on, there's only 2 companies here doing it. There's no way that there is enough supply. So and we're going to start this company, and guess what? The customer service that they can provide will be substantially better, because it's American customer service, right? So that's an area where Paraguay lacks, right? Skill, knowledge, experience, and just the right structure and all of that. But I feel like what you've pointed out is key for anyone watching this video. Like, if you're stuck in Europe and you're like, hey, I can't grow in Europe, I can't innovate, I cannot succeed because of regulation, taxes, lack of just future vision. Freedom, right? But Paraguay, if you bring an idea from overseas, from Europe into Paraguay, you're gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone by minimizing government. Paraguay is a much smaller government than the EU has, right? The EU has big government, big taxes, big regulation. And here, you go from maybe 40, 50% taxes down to 10, or almost nothing if you do it right? You can have certain company structures, you can deduct. There's a lot you can do. Or, you can have a foreign company that's like a parent company. There are a lot of things you can do to optimize your taxes. Whereas in Europe, you can do those things too, but they're just gonna be slamming you a lot. They're gonna be punishing you, hitting your fingers, whenever you try to put your fingers in the honey pot. It's like, no, you shouldn't do that. The honey is meant for all of us. One of the things that I get to enjoy a lot from living in emerging countries is that, and maybe I shouldn't say this on camera, but it's true, the law is not a straight line here. In Europe, it is a straight line. In America, it's an ultra straight line in a sense that you can't really deviate too much. Here in Paraguay, the law is more flexible, right? And as long as you don't mess with the big people here, and as long as you like contribute, you do your part, you're going to be fine. Whereas in Europe, the fears of getting a CBDC are great. Surveillance. Whereas here in Paraguay, on the streets, I don't really see a lot of cameras either. I mean, they exist in the more fancier neighborhoods more, of course, but overall, it's just, like you say, it's more relaxed.
Yeah.
It's just better, right? Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to pass on, specifically for Europeans watching this video? Even if they are Europeans or just foreigners living in Europe, what would be a final thought where you would say, get out of Europe, leave Europe before 2030? What would be like a final tip you could pass on to our audience?
So, in my experience, all of the international people that I met there, they never left Europe. And you can really see the impact of that. And you can also see the people that really left Europe, how much the mindset changes. So if I were to give you a tip, is come. It doesn't have to be Paraguay. Obviously, Paraguay is definitely the best, but come, experience, and you will also see how much better you feel in a society that listens to you and that welcomes you and wants you to be a part of it.
If you're interested in immigrating to Paraguay, you're welcome to work with us. Feel free to book a consultation with me personally. Our link should be displayed on the screen. It's always added below in the description of the video. Thank you, Nico, for your time. I appreciate it. And we look forward to discussing more about this topic in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching.